Okay, so now that we've learned a little bit more about what a Notan design is, we've did a little reading to give us a little background on it, I wanted to show you some examples of Notan design. It ranges really from very, very simple to very, very complex. So you can have things that are just kind of a simple bisected in the middle with, symmetry on either side of one fold. These are all, one solid figure. There's no other embellishments. These are very graphic and bold, and they really do stand out, so this is perfectly acceptable, except that it's a little bit boring and a little bit simple, so I would like you to push yourself beyond this. It's perfectly okay to use this as part of, but it shouldn't be your whole design. On the flip side, you can do something much more complex. However, that does get more and more difficult the more complexity you add to the thing, especially knowing that we're working on a 5x5 square of black paper. It also gets really tiny. It can get hard to get into some of these little spaces, so something this complex might not be achievable, at least as the whole design, because this is a much larger piece of paper to start with. Speaking of crazy complex things, again, I don't expect that you'll be able to cut all of this out of our much smaller square. However, I think this gives you some really great ideas on how you can play with those edges of the black and white and how you can have things radiate out in all directions. Another word for this project is called the exploding square, and it literally does look like all of your black designs are exploding out from the inside. Again, you can do things where the whole image is flipped across, or you can do things where on the edge here. So right here, everything that used to be in the middle here is now repeated on the opposite side. Or, like the one before and this one here, you can actually cut in along these edges. Both of those are acceptable techniques. This one is a little bit easier for beginners if you're worried about it. You can also always practice on scrap pieces of paper first before you make your cuts into your final copy paper. You can see here this one's actually reflected up as opposed to reflecting in the same direction, so some of these have different reflections building into one piece. Same thing here, like this half reflects over here, this part reflects over there to extend and make a longer drawing. That's acceptable as well. If you want to keep it just stuck around this one square and having everything radiate out, again, that works too. This one here is just that bisected image, but instead of that really simple one from back here where it's just like one solid cutout shape, you can go back in and cut back into those solid shapes, add little details to enhance what yours looks like. Just make sure that you're gluing them in the appropriate spots based on the other flip. Here again we have that exploding square idea. You can create some fun different shapes. This is almost like a butterfly shape created just by the negative space of where the legs are, whereas this part here looked like it could have been a heart. When you put them together, they start looking like a butterfly. These two shapes together almost look like a bone, which goes with your kind of animal theme. Maybe should have been a dog instead of a cat. Again, having a theme going through here, so this idea of like a butterfly with a vine doing this like nature thing with this little like honestly creepy looking bug down here. Those are acceptable. If you want to have your figures represent something, you can do that. If you want your figures to be abstract, you can do that too. You just want to make sure that's a conscious choice. So you're not starting out with one and be like, oops, I cut it wrong. Now it's just going to be non-representational. You want to make sure that your cuts are intentional and your images you use are on purpose. The last one I just wanted to show you was this guy right here. You can see that sometimes you can have oopses. So like this guy right here is not exactly the same thickness as over here. And this, you can see there's an extra accidental cut here, but once you glue it down, you don't really notice it quite so much. You can also see like more was cut out over here than is actually laid down over here. So it's very important that you hang on to all of your pieces, especially if you make oops cuts. You really want to make sure that you keep them together. And that's about it. So now you guys got to get creative and figure out what you're going to do on your own.